Hello and welcome to the Everyday Joy podcast. I am your new host, Ash Owen, and I cannot even tell you how excited I am to be diving into today's episode. Now, maybe you're listening, maybe you're wondering what's going on. Let me encourage you, if you missed out on yesterday's episode, jump back into episode 204 and have a listen, because Joy and I have a chat. We talk about some exciting things happening, we talk about some big changes, but most of all, we celebrate what has been, and that is over 200 episodes of the Everyday Joy podcast. 200 episodes is such a massive achievement, and we literally could not do it without you. The Everyday Joy community has been so integral in this last year of episodes, this last year of supporting each other, celebrating each other, championing each other, and finding ways to draw closer to God just that little bit each and every day. So because of that, over the next 2 weeks, myself and MJ will be diving into a reflection of our favorite moments of the last year. We'll reflect on some of our favorite episodes, some of our favorite stories, some of our favorite scriptures, and just celebrate and reflect the incredible things God has done in the last year. In today's episode, we reflect on episode 63, which is a chat between Joy and Joe, where they talk about Philippians 4, verse 6 to 7. They talk about the joy of the Lord, which says, don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God your needs and don't forget to thank Him for His answers. If you do this, you will experience God's peace, which is more wonderful than the human mind can comprehend. Get ready to dive into Joy and Joe's conversation on how we can get peace, how we can overcome our circumstance, and how we can trust God despite it all.
I think straight away of that song, don't worry, be happy. And I think about what a cliche it is, and how if you're in the midst of worrying, that would just really probably annoy you. And I get that too. But I think God gives us some answers in this, and He loves us so much. He's saying, don't worry, pray about everything, and tell God your needs. So when you're worried, you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
This is an action. This is an action scripture. Don't worry about anything. Instead, pray. Then it says, tell God your needs and don't forget to thank Him. And if you do this, you will get peace and far more than your human understanding could take. So sometimes you get paralyzed and don't know what to do when you're worried. This is a to-do list.
I love it.
And God is very practical. He's really practical in the way He gives you that answer. Easier said than done, but one thing I will say, I used to be a big worrier, Joy. Life and experience and adventures with God have taught me to jump very quickly from the worry to prayer and thanks. And I think when you experience God in the moments that you worried, you kind of get to know Him and how to do this better.
I think it's so true, MJ. The way that Joe just said, it's in those moments of worry that you actually discover the goodness of God. Yeah. It's actually in those moments where you don't really want to be there. You don't really want to be sitting in the yuck and the mess. But it's in those moments of worry, and without those moments of worry, we wouldn't learn to trust and rely on God.
It's so often in the moments where we ask, God, show me patience, and it's like, okay, it's not this magical zap from heaven that kind of comes.
I wish it was a magical zap.
So good. The Pentecostal background of me is kind of like, I just walk down the front and it kind of happens. But so often God's much more interested in developing our character into His likeness, which means, well, to put moments of prayer and gratitude and thankfulness into action, it means there are going to be moments that cause initial worry, initial fear, initial concern. And God goes, well, what are you going to do with that? You know, when I used to be a youth pastor before working in radio for a number of years. And one of the things I'd often say to the young people I lead is the greatest indicator of your spiritual maturity is the gap between God speaking to you about something and you living that out.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's why we need prayer in our life, where God goes, this is this place you can come to me. Come to me with your concerns, your fears, your worries, your anxieties. And let's see if you're actually going to let me be Lord and lead you through this, Or are you just going to keep holding on to this?
Yeah, it's so true. I literally read a scripture the other day that relates straight to this, and it was talking about a king of Israel.
Yeah.
And it was basically saying how, I'm pretty sure, I forget his name, but it's the king after Solomon.
Something a fact.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And basically, it just said that he relied on his own strength the whole time.
Yeah.
But he built a massive army. He was able to do all of these, what we would say, incredible things in his own strength. And kind of like what Joe was saying before, we can try to do those things and we can try to push on. But in this story in Chronicles, it was basically just saying, despite his strength, because he didn't trust in the Lord, that's where everything kind of fell apart. And so I think the essence of this is just saying exactly what you said, MJ. If you don't trust in him and you don't seek him and sit with him, and you can throw your hands up a bit and be like, Lord, I don't know what I'm doing. I need you. Help me. But if we don't do that step, we don't let God into the circumstance and into the situation.
So often God allows things to come into our life for our benefit and for his glory and for our pain that can come intentionally along the way. And it's not a harsh pain that comes, but rather like a parent does with their kids. They're trying to grow them up. They're trying to develop them to be people. And God doesn't want us to be immature in our faith. He doesn't just want us to have a lip service faith. He wants us to know the goodness of God, to know the faithfulness of God, to know the provision of God, not just because we read it in a Bible verse or because we heard a pastor or friend or mentor or leader say it, but we too know it for ourselves. And that's when we can come to him in prayer, is us coming to God going, I know the goodness of God. I know the faithfulness of God. And I don't have to be worrying or anxious or concerned because I know that God is there with me.
Yeah, and that's kind of like what in that little clip, Joe mentions her like worry to-do list.
Yeah.
And I guess I just wanted to ask you, MJ, you've got some life experience.
Yes.
You've got some things that you've gone through. I'm sure you've experienced your fair share of worry and learning to trust in the Lord. So when you've gone through seasons that have been just full of fear, full of worry, what is on your to-do list to try and quickly realign yourself back with the truth of what God has for you?
Yet the first question I would ask myself is what I'm doing while worrying, is it changing anything?
That's such a good one.
It is me going, what if I, and I go, it's like, all it actually is doing is heightening my own anxiety and building the situation to be worse. And so it's this moment of, what can I do? If there are things within my control, do those things. Yeah. Do them in prayer. Absolutely. Don't do it in your own strength. But if there are things that you can't do anything about, well, then it's about, God, I've got to give this to you, because by just running through the variables, by thinking through all the scenarios, if it won't change anything and I can't change anything, I don't have enough time in life to worry anymore. But I do have time to simply go, God, help me to continually give this to you. And when the moment of the worry of what if I could, and it's like, God, sometimes I just got to give this to you. So for me, that's where I start.
Oh, that's so good. I know that there's definitely someone listening today who's probably sitting in that space of, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so worried. Even that thought of I'm frozen, like what Joe was saying in that little clip. I think sometimes when we're worried, the enemy's plan is almost to make us stuck, make us unable to move, unable to make a decision, unable to seek God. And I think that if you're listening today, take MJ's advice, take a moment, reflect on what's God in this situation, what can you control, what can't you control, and really just take a second to hand it over. I love that verse that talks about God's yoke being easy and light. And it's such a great reminder for me to go, despite my fear, despite my worry, despite my moment of feeling unable to move, if I hand it to God, he does make a way and he does sort it out. I love that thought, MJ. I don't know about you, but I am so grateful to believe in a God who never fails and whose peace surpasses all understanding. I love what Joe had to say about the worry to-do list. How do we overcome these worries and anxieties when we feel like our brain is moving at 100 miles an hour? The advice that MJ and Joe gave was so simple. Write a worry to-do list. Write down the things we are in control of. Write down the things we aren't in control of. But ultimately, write down the truths about God and what He is in control of. He will hold you tight in the palm of His hands, and we can trust that His plans for us are good. He says, don't worry about anything. Instead, pray about everything. Tell God your needs and don't forget to thank Him. I love today's episode and diving into these last 200 episodes of the Everyday Joy podcast. Tomorrow, we're going to take another deep dive, and I cannot wait. Well, I'm believing you have an amazing day, and we cannot wait to see you tomorrow. Chat soon.